Welcome to the Game Night High School Football Podcast, a weekly review of all the local high school football games set to be played this weekend. The Game Night Podcast is brought to you by Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get back out on the field. Now we turn it over to our hosts, sports editor Kurt Ritzman and lead sports writer Todd Hummel.
Welcome to week 9 of our Game Night High School Football Podcast. I'm Kurt and this is Todd.
Hello. I can't believe how fast this season's going. He said we weren't going to do that to start.
I feel like we've just done that every week because
we have.
it's really flying by, and now there's just 2 weeks left before the playoffs start. A lot of spots to still get clinched and a lot of seeding issues to still be worked out.
I think it's more seeding issues than anything. If you look at I think the only real race is probably in Class A for that last spot in Class A between Bucktail and Montgomery, I believe it is. Yeah, Bucktail and Montgomery is the only one where there seems to be a question to who's getting in.
I think there's a question in 2A with, I feel like Mifflinburg, Warrior Run, Milton are kind of jumping that 8-9 spot. That's 3A?
Yeah, that's 3A. But yeah, and then with the power rankings, it's weird because Milton got that big leap from losing to undefeated Wellsboro, and then I think they fell behind Mifflinburg and Warrior Run. I think Warrior Run's taken over that spot now, the number 8 spot. Mifflinburg's going to get some help by playing a bigger school this week, and assuming they should beat Central Mountain. And, I think Mifflinburg probably with the end of their schedule, hosting Central Mountain, and then they play Lewisburg next week in that big rivalry game, and Lewisburg being having a pretty good, having a winning record going into that game, I think that's going to boost Mifflinburg's playoff chances. And I think it's, Milton is probably going to have to, Milton's not going to get much help from a Class A South Williamsport team this week, but Milton's going to get their help if they can, that Milton-Shikellamy game becomes interesting next week because Milton's probably going to have to win that if they're going to have a shot at getting into the playoffs, and Schick's probably going to, I think looking at those numbers in 4A, Schick's probably got that 4 spot wrapped up just by losing to Southern last week, and Votech lost again last night in an odd Wednesday afternoon game with, no, they beat Bucktail last night, I'm sorry. Votech beat Bucktail, so I don't know if that's how much that's going to help them, but Schick's going to get some help this week from Shamokin, and then probably, obviously to have a shot at that Milton game, and a win there would probably be huge next week. So I guess there is some questions at the bottom half of the bracket. I should listen to you more often.
Let's start with Mifflinburg 2-6 hosting 0-8 Central Mountain. Senior night for the Wildcats, and Central Mountain is big as far as size, not very good as from that 0-8 record. So it could be big for Mifflinburg trying to get in the playoffs.
And it's the same thing as the Selinsgrove game last week. What you want to do is stop Central Mountain is that passing game, and they were able to score 2 touchdowns. One was late against the second team Selinsgrove defense, but they were able to move the ball a little bit through in the passing game, and they're the Wildcats are just going to have to be aware of Colin Jones down the field. I was going to say the Wildcats.
Which Wildcats?
They're both the Wildcats. I think the big thing for Mifflinburg is just, they turned the ball a little bit last week. That really cost them against a really good Montoursville team, but was able to, put a drive together early in the game against a pretty good Montoursville defense, first team on first team. Saw some positives offensively. I think Mifflinburg gets this one, and I think right now, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I think with this end of the schedule, I think Mifflinburg has to be considered the favorite for that 8 seed in 3A.
Let's move on. 2 teams. Schick probably in the playoffs. Shamokin should be in the playoffs. Both coming off tough losses last week. Shamokin got beat worse than they were expecting, I'm sure, by Danville. Shikellamy had to play Southern Columbia. Those 2 teams square off at the Silver Bowl. Kent Memorial.
Kent Memorial. Good Lord.
Sorry.
You get run out of both those towns by making that mistake. Big thing, for the Braves, I said this before we went on the air, I think if this Braves team gets healthy, I think 4A is wide open enough that, if the Braves start to play well, that they're every bit of a dark horse contender. They've played a half with some of these teams in 4A, just haven't been able to close and stay close for a full 4 quarters. I came in here last week, raving about how good Shamokin was, and I talked a little bit was up to Danville last week and talked with Coach Kaiser, and I don't think Shamokin played poorly in that game. Okay. It just, they had a chance in the third quarter to get themselves back into it, but Danville's defense is real underrated and did a real good job of keeping Shamokin's offense in check. When for the first, the Indians' defense for the first time in probably 6 weeks held the Danville offense down for a quarter, but it ended up in the fourth quarter, 3 quick touchdowns, and Danville's able to pull away. I think the biggest thing we talked a lot about this season about Henry Hajnowski changing the culture out at Shamokin, and the biggest thing in changing the culture out there is probably getting a little more consistency, and that's been the biggest problem with these Indians. And their week-to-week performance has not been consistent. So if you're looking at it like that, this is a week that they come out pretty good and do some good things. I think they're better than Shikellamy. I think Shikellamy probably plays this one a little closer. Held out some kids last week in that Southern game. They should be a little more healthy than they have been for the most part this season. I think Shamokin gets this one, but I think if we get the Shamokin team to play Jersey Shore, the Shamokin team to plplay Danville, this Schick team has a chance to keep this close and maybe pull off the upset.
Well, talking about Danville 7-1, hosting 4-4 Selinsgrove. The Ironmen coming off that win against Shamokin. One of the things that stuck out to me about Danville this year is, other than that one loss, it seems like every game they've put together a 5, 6, 7 minute stretch where 3 touchdowns for Danville and game's over.
We talked, the first podcast of the season, we talked about how many athletes they have Danville has on the outside, and look at the numbers Peyton Persing has put up over these last 3 weeks, and he didn't really. I don't want to say he didn't touch the ball, but he did not touch the ball like he has the last 3 weeks. And, it's just a matter of them finding that balance of getting enough. Shane Kozik's one of the best tight ends in the area, and he kind of went away for a little bit for the last couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden on Friday night he's got 2 touchdown catches and 75 yards receiving, and almost returned a 56-yard kickoff return to set up another score. It ended up being a missed field goal, but to set up another drive deep into Shamokin territory.
Sure.
Danville can't get caught, looking past the Selinsgrove team. They got undefeated Southern next week, who, that's probably going to be, at least has a chance to be one of the higher scoring games of the season, obviously.
That doesn't feature Millersburg.
Yeah, that doesn't feature Millersburg. But this is an interesting game for Selinsgrove. They played the Central Mountain team. They did what they had to do last week up in Mill Hall. Got Danny Schock back on track. Got a little bit of a running game going. But the big issue for the Selinsgrove team is consistency offensively. There's been games where the Jersey Shore game in the second week of the season, 300 yards passing. They had the game against Schick where they ran the ball, but they haven't had a game yet where they put the entire offense together, and that's going to be tough this week. I said, we were talking about Shamokin. Danville's defense gets a little bit, is a little underrated. You look at the early part of the season, gave up those 40 points to Loyal Sock, but that's Connor Watkins too at that point in the season where he was playing really well before he got hurt. I talked to Ryan Browse after the game out at Kent Memorial Stadium on whether or not the Ironman defense had a little something to prove.
Yeah, we did. We need to come out stronger than we can bend, not break. Our defensive line, we have a motto: we cannot give up the line of scrimmage. We hold the line of scrimmage, and we lead up to our secondary to take care of the pass.
I was going to say their line played really well last week. What did you guys see on film this week, and how did you guys kind of try and attack it?
They were a little bit slower than us. We were a little bit more physical on the line of scrimmage. We were able to hold the line of scrimmage, get the tackle for losses, hold up so they couldn't get to linebackers. That's all we focused on, eating up blocks.
I think Danville wins this game. Looking at Selinsgrove right now, they have a tough schedule to end the season with Montoursville next week. So, they have a shot maybe of falling out of that home seed and maybe Midwest jumping them, but that's going to take, probably 2 wins from Midwest and maybe, I don't know what the power rankings. They're playing, Tunkhannock I think is a 4A school, so that's at least, but this week's game's a Class A school, so maybe they can't jump Selinsgrove. I love the power rankings, but at least the math was easier with the point system. I could probably know that a little better, but yeah, I think Danville wins this one, and look for Selinsgrove to keep it close for a while, and the big thing for Selinsgrove is avoiding that stretch where Danville gets 14, 21, 28 points in like 3 or 4 minutes, and all of a sudden a close game is all of a sudden a blowout.
And also, Todd went up to Danville yesterday and talked to Peyton Persing for our game night cover story, so make sure you guys pick that up.
How did I miss a chance at a cheap plug?
I don't know.
I even said his name
but
at the beginning.
I was right on it.
There you go.
So Friday's Daily Item, Peyton Persing cover story.
That's why you're the boss.
Hey. So the game you're headed to this week, 5-3 Lewisburg at 5-3 Central Columbia. I don't know what to make of Lewisburg.
I sometimes wonder if Lewisburg knows what to make of Lewisburg. I really thought they were going to go up to Jersey Shore, and they played after falling behind a little bit. They had control of the game, but I think it was 5 turnovers and 4 fumbles in a row, and then an interception.
Wow.
In the second half, and you can't give a team that that's good like Jersey Shore that many chances, and they were able to rally. And we talked all year about the Bulldogs not being able to run the ball, and they finally got the running game going with 200-yard rushers in that game. And and this is this is almost a mirror image, of Jersey Shore going up to Central Columbia. Coach Mark Persing said that, but they're probably better. Central Columbia is better. They have a better running attack and probably more athletic on the outside than Jersey Shore. I mean, you look at Central, the Xander Bradley kid, the receiver, and Jared First were both in the top 5 in the 100 or the top 10 in the 100 in districts. And their sophomore receiver, Eli Morrison, is probably one of the top young basketball players in the district right now. Started as a freshman for them last year. So they're kind of underrated athletically on the outside. Plus that big offensive line, and they're gonna grind you down with Gensmer and trying to hit you over the top. And Lewisburg, what Lewisburg's gonna do? It's gonna be a whole lot of Max Moyers, and that's the big thing. They got to get these mistakes solved. And Coach Persing said, Division I's out, but now they feel they have a shot at a 3A title, and they're trying to work towards that. And this, if they have thoughts of a 3A title, they're probably going to see the Central Columbia team again in November. Mm-hmm. So this is an interesting matchup this week. Both teams are 5-3. I think Lewisburg's 3 this week, and Central Columbia is 4.
Okay.
In the district power ranking. So this is going to be big for Central Columbia. That's going to probably give them a boost and get them closer to maybe, I don't know if they can overtake Mount Carmel or not. If Mount Carmel would slip up, they have Bloomsburg and Shamokin. So I think Lewisburg's kind of playing for that 3 seed in a home game in the quarterfinals. We'll see. Lewisburg is obviously good enough to win this game.
Sure.
But Lewisburg, I can't say with as inconsistent as they've been at times, I can't say Lewisburg's going to win this one. Going to go with the Blue Jays this week, but I think this is obviously, looking at these games, this really has a chance to be the closest game of the weekend.
Wow. A game that looks good on paper. I'm not sure how good it'll be on the field. 6-2 Mount Carmel, coming off a dominant win over South Williamsport. Headed to 5-3 Bloomsburg. Bloomsburg was a team I don't know that we expected too much of at the beginning of the year, and then when you start the year with Southern Columbia, but they bounce right back with that 39-0 shutout of Mifflinburg and have done pretty well since. I mean, I like the Red Tornadoes a lot. I think they're the second best team around behind Southern, but Bloomsburg could be a challenge for them, right? 5-3.
You think so? But Bloomsburg, struggled with South Williamsport. We saw what Mount Carmel was able to do to South Williamsport 2 weeks ago on the road. As long as the Red Tornadoes don't get caught looking ahead to the coal bucket next week, I think this is probably kind of a blowout. I think Mount Carmel's playing really well right now. The beginning of the struggled a little bit running the ball at the beginning of the year, but now John Ayers is near 1,000 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Shane Widener up over 500. And the passing game has come on over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Tommy Reisinger's, I think, like 5 yards short of 1,000 yards passing going into the last 2 weeks of the season. Trying to think. I think he's tied for second in the area with touchdown passes with 11. KJ Riley Danville has 17.
Whoa.
No, Tom has 12. Sorry, Tom has 12 touchdown passes. So if Mount Carmel can pass the ball, I think we're looking. I don't want to denigrate the rest of 2A, but I think it'd be a shock if we're not looking at Southern and Mount Carmel the third week in November for a 2A title once again. And Bloomsburg's quarterback Jack Howell is going to have to throw the ball well in this one to kind of take the because I don't think Hunter Coulter and those guys are going to be able to run on this Mount Carmel defense. But I think Mount Carmel gets this one. And haven't heard at all, so this might be the first game that Bloomsburg's going to be able to actually play down at their high school field down in town since the flooding in August rather than up at the university. Of course, now we'll post this and they'll tweet that got to move it to the university.
Yep, still at Redmond.
As of 1:30 Wednesday, it's still down at the park.
The next game, 2-6 Warrior Run, has been doing some nice things under first year coach Chris Long lately. Headed to 4-4 Loyal Sock. If Loyal Sock wins, they will force a 3-way tie for the Hack 2 title. Loyal Sock had a tough time with Milton last week, trailed 7-3 at halftime before, dominating the second half, but...
Warrior Run's coming off that shutout to Central Columbia and last week, 49-0. This is a good Loyal Sock team. I think without Connor Watkins, this is not it's eminently beatable.
Mm-hmm.
You put 4 quarters. Mifflinburg almost came back on him the week before after Milton led at halftime. I think we got this. This has the same look. I think Warrior Run has a chance to hang with them. Now it's a matter, in the second half of being able to withstand, them.
Sure.
It's a senior laden team. It's a proud team. It's also a team looking for a division title, obviously. And I think they'd be, other than that hiccup in the Montoursville game, the Bloomsburg game where Connor Watkins got hurt, and then the next week against Bloomsburg when they were kind of working, next 2 weeks working Cole Cavanaugh, and probably since that second half of the Selinsgrove game, it seems like they've kind of figured out what they want to do offensively, and they've really praised Connor Watkins for the way he's worked with Cole Cavanaugh, and Cavanaugh seems to be coming on. I was really thinking Warrior Run had this kind of, I don't want to say turned around, but we're playing better. Said earlier, Central Columbia is a really good football team,
right.
So it's not a surprise they won. So I just interested to see how they kind of bounce back, because that's the first time that Warrior Run's really been smacked around in a month.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're about halfway through our game, so we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor, Sun Orthopedics at Evangelical, and then we'll be back with the second half of this week's slate.
Whether it's time to live it up on the field or in the backyard, there's always time to play. The sports medicine team at Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical understands how important movement is to you and your family's life. With 4 convenient locations, the experts at Sun Orthopedics explore every treatment option available, from simple braces to advanced surgical techniques. They support you through the entire healing process, making sure you're back to being a warrior every weekend. Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get moving again.
Just before our break, we talked about Milton and how they led Loyal Sock at halftime, but still dropped to 1-7. They're headed to 4-4 South Williamsport this week. South Williamsport coming off a big loss to Mount Carmel.
Man, I'm a little surprised we're sitting here. I know they dealt with some injuries with Milton at 1-8. The Black Panthers have shown flashes. They just haven't shown enough flashes over 4 quarters. And I wonder how different this season is, besides the Phil Davis injury, if they're able to hold on in that Shamokin game to open the season that was a 34-33 loss to give them kind of some confidence. If they put together a first half like they did last week, this is like we've talked all season. This is a decent South Williamsport team, but this is not the Dominic Bragalone or Gideon Green brand of the Mounties. Mm-hmm. So, put together 4 quarters like they put together in the first half. I think they have at least a fighter's chance against this South Williamsport team. And I think, the Mounties are going to get back to what they want to do. They've struggled to run the ball against Mount Carmel. They're going to go back to. You're going to see a lot of Gannon Gursky. I think that's how you say that last name up there, and go back, run, and hit the deep pass with their veteran quarterback AJ Flick. Milton's offense has gotten better since Davis has come back. Still haven't put together one of those games like they did last year, where he has one of those 300-yard passing games with 4 or 5 touchdowns, and they get this one, and if they can figure out a way to get this one, certainly a winnable game for them against Shikellamy next week, where they have a shot at that 8 seed, maybe knocking Mifflinburg out, because I guess you have to figure Lewisburg is the favorite against Mifflinburg, even though it's a rivalry game.
Sure.
So if Milton's able to kind of pull off this upset, they've certainly put themselves back into the playoff race. Though South Williamsport's always a tough place to play, I think the Mounties get this one, but hoping the Milton can keep this close and maybe pull off the upset.
We have one more hack game on the slate this week. 0-8 Hughesville headed to 8-0 Southern Columbia. What? How do you want to break this one down?
Southern wins.
Southern wins.
Actually, one note: Stone Hollenbach is supposed to come back this week. Obviously, I think they want to get him a little work before, facing Danville next week,
Sure.
and obviously before the playoffs start the week after that. They've used this time without Stone to really get that running game going. Another 400-yard game last week against Shikellamy. Both Gage and Gavin Garcia are both up over 10 yards per carry, and it's been a struggle for the Spartans, who have played better in the second half of the season, have given some teams some trouble, at least for a half. Don't think that's happening this week, probably. Southern can probably name their score like they have been the last couple weeks and do some work in preparation for Danville next week. See, that was more than you thought you were getting out of Hughesville and Southern, wasn't it?
It was very interesting, that's for sure.
Liar, liar.
No. Stone coming back, getting some reps before Danville in the playoffs. That could be key as the Tigers look for another state title.
Yeah, I think he'll. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not worried.
I was gonna say they've been so good, and Preston has done a good enough job that I don't think that they would have to worry about that. But there's obviously tougher games than Hughesville coming later on in the season.
Jumping over to the Tri-Valley League, Line Mountain evened its record last week with a tough 22-20 win over Pine Grove. They're welcoming 5-3 Tri-Valley and another. We've talked about
the middle of this league is all the same.
Tri-Valley League has been cannibalizing itself this year.
Pretty much, for the most part, other than undefeated Halifax and I think a very surprising Upper Dauphin team at 7-1. Imagine they're Upper Dauphin 7-1 and blew a 21-point lead to Halifax at halftime, or else Upper Dauphin would probably be sitting pretty in the Tri-Valley League. I had to pause there because I was going Tri-Valley after Tri-Valley League.
Yes.
The Bulldogs are coached by Jeff Sampson this year, the former coach at Pine Grove. Mike Ulickney retired, though. I guess Mike Ulickney is currently still on the staff down there. What you're going to get from Tri-Valley, Isaac Lucas you're going to get a whole lot of Isaac Lucas. The Bulldogs seem to be able to throw the ball a little bit, which is a little better than they have been the past couple of years. Have struggled with throwing the ball a little bit, but that running game is so good. And this is kind of an underrated rivalry, just in the fact I can remember when I was a kid how this game always used to be for the Tri-Valley League or Twin Valley Conference title. Brandon Carson's dad actually came from Tri-Valley. He was a Tri-Valley head coach in the late 80s and a little bit in the early part of the 90s. And don't quote me on that. I'm sure if Harold watches this, he'll tell me I'm wrong. But I think Kent Smeltz, the Upper Dauphin coach, played for Mike at Lime Mountain in the early part of the 90s. Again, this Lime Mountain defense has been really good all season. I don't like the transitive property of sports, but Tri-Valley beat Newport fairly easily last week. I think it was 33-8. So and Lime Mountain struggled with Newport over at Newport before falling. So I think this is this has every chance to be 22-20 again, like Lime Mountain and Pine Grove, as a toss-up to who wins this game. And I think Lime Mountain wants to keep winning. They got themselves out of the 8 seed. Now they're into the 7th seed, which is a trip to the Silver Bowl in the quarterfinals, which was a shutout loss for Lime Mountain last year in the semis.
Yeah.
So again, I think they're really trying really hard here to get a win here, and then Upper Dauphin next week to try and get enough power ranking points to get out of that 7 and 8 seed and get I don't want to say an easier game, but heading to Wellsboro. Heading to Wellsboro. They went to Wellsboro last year, beat Wellsboro. I think they really want to get into that 6th seed and play the 3 seed rather than heading to Catawissa or Mount Carmel to play the Tigers or the Red Tornadoes. A big thing for the Eagles we talked all year is turnovers, and if they can limit their turnovers, they'll win this game. I think the Eagles win this just at home, just because they're at home. But again, this is another one of those toss-ups that's going to go. It's going to be a 2, 3, 5 point game.
Sure. Other Tri-Valley League game we want to take a look at, 1-7 Juniata. Kind of surprising, that record, I would think. Headed to 0-8 Millersburg, still trying to snap that losing skid.
Yeah, and you in theory they have a shot at this one against a 1-7 Juniata team, but this is of course coming to Millersburg. Juniata's playing its best football of the season. Got its win. Got Coach Klingensmith his milestone win, 300. Yes, 300 win.
Yep.
And then gave Halifax all they could handle for most of the first half last week before falling 13-7. So I think Juniata gets this one, and if you're keeping track, I think this is a good offense week for Millersburg. So this one has a chance to be a high scoring game because Juniata is not afraid to run up the score on Millersburg. I think they scored 81 points 2 years ago the last time they came down to Millersburg. So I think Juniata wins this one, but hopefully Millersburg can get some points and avoid being embarrassed.
Then we've got one Saturday game for you guys this week. 1 o'clock Saturday at West Snyder Elementary School. Vincentian Academy comes to take on Midwest. Vincentian Academy is 1-3. They've played 2 West Virginia schools, 2 Pennsylvania schools. Their first win of the season was last week, and this is their last game, I believe. I think they only have a 5-game schedule.
Yeah, they did not play football last year. They didn't have enough players to field a team. Geez, the last I looked, I think they only have 18 or 19 kids on the roster. Ooh. So, I'm thinking Midwest wins this game. It's one of those things, can't afford to look ahead or anything against Tunkhannock next week. And, this is kind of important for Midwest, especially the way they've lost the last 2 weeks. A 2-point conversion at the end of the game failed, and then had a lead in the fourth quarter before Athens was able to get 2 late touchdowns and grab the win. So a win's going to be big for them, just confidence-wise, going into these last 2 weeks and getting into the playoffs. That's a Vincentians outside of Pittsburgh, so
that's a long trip.
It's going to be a long trip to Beaver Springs for them. So, hopefully, as long as Midwest avoids any kind of letdown or looking ahead or anything like that, they should win this one pretty easily and have a pretty interesting one against a 4A on the road team against Tunkhannock next week. So we'll see how that goes. And I saw I think it's Appreciate Your Teachers Day out at Beaver Springs Elementary. So they're going to honor the Midwest teachers and should honor them with a victory out there. That's everything.
Yeah, that's all our games.
Plugs.
Yep. So make sure to pick up Friday's Daily Item for our game night section with Todd's cover story on Peyton Persing. And then in the normal sports section, which will be D, Todd will have all his picks and his column. Friday night, follow along at dailyitem.com with our scoreboard and our live blog. Make sure to pick up Saturday's paper for all of the results. Also this week, if you only you should get the paper every day. But if you only care about high school football, you should also get Sunday's paper this week to get the Midwest game coverage.
Yes.
And then Monday's paper will have our high school football notebook with interesting tidbits from Friday's and possibly Saturday's Midwest game in there also. And that's all I got.
All right. Oh, geez. Week 10 next week.
It'll be
See
fun.
ya.
Thanks.
Whether it's time to live it up on the field or in the backyard, there's always time to play. The sports medicine team at Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical understands how important movement is to you and your family's life. With 4 convenient locations, the experts at Sun Orthopedics explore every treatment option available, from simple braces to advanced surgical techniques. They support you through the entire healing process, making sure you're back to being a warrior every weekend. Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get moving again.